first, when did you first start fostering children?
March of 2013.
And why did you guys decide to start doing so?
Well, Erin is a social worker, so she got her degree, or undergraduate degree, and master's degree in social work, and so it's kind of always been something that she wanted to do. And we've talked about it back and forth over the years, and I think honestly she was ready way before I was, but finally once I kind of agreed, we started doing the classes and started getting licensed, and been doing it ever since.
Probably spurred from, I can't remember any particular advertisement or anything, but we have heard about the need, especially in Bay County for foster families. And so we just felt like God blessed us with the space and, extra rooms and things. And so we went through the class.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's been almost now 6 years, I would say, because it's 2019, not 2018.
Yeah.
How many kids you've had through here?
We have probably had about 12 to 15 overall, and like I said, most of them have been pretty long term. We've had a few that have been, shorter term, but for the most part, we've had the kids that we've had for over a year.
I've been thankful that we've had longer term placements, and it hasn't been like the revolving door. A lot of foster families go through that, and it's, it's a roller coaster every time, but especially having other biological kids and adopted kids that are a part of the family, it's just good for everybody to just have a chance for those to become brothers and sisters, and the family to kind of like settle into a routine, a schedule and everything. So I've been glad we've had longer term placements because it's helped us to also get to know them better and get to know their biological families so that we can kind of keep in contact even when they leave us.
And how have your biological children reacted to having the foster kids?
They do great. They do better than we do. Honestly, I'm thankful for them, especially in the beginning when we get a new child, because most of the time our foster kids will bond with our biological kids faster than us. They're less intimidating, and they can kind of follow them and see how does this family work, what's the routine and what's everybody required to do. And so Eva and Ethan have they kind of run the show, at the beginning, because we don't have a lot of rules to begin with. Also, at the very beginning, like we just kind of just expect everybody to just generally, be civil to each other. But there's not, a lot of rules at the very beginning. But they start to learn the rules of the family through Eva and Ethan because they're just doing what our family does.
So they've been a lot more open than maybe most kids that are younger, and they're not showing to be that selfish as young kids can be sometimes.
No, they have been very open with their possessions, with their rooms, with their time. Honestly, we have, like she said, going into it, that was one of my concerns, but honestly, they have far exceeded, my expectations as far as just bringing them in, accepting them basically right away. Honestly, we haven't had any issue at all really with that.
And it probably, we include them. Jason and I make the decisions, as far as our, bringing in a child to our home. But we include them. We talked with them about it as much notice as we have, which is not always a lot. But we include them and say, what do you think about this before we, say the final yes. And so they're included, and, they are our licensing person, every year talks with them about how they're doing, what do they, and sometimes it's just the blanket, we're fine and everything's going fine, but sometimes they lay it all out, and say what they really think. So anyway, they do great. And they have a compassion for our foster kids that we can't really have because they're kids, and they just understand what it's like right then and there to be a kid,
And like you said, this wasn't technically their choice, but they are included. So how is it knowing you raised people, like the foster kids you didn't help raise from birth, except obviously now your youngest, but you've raised children that are so open and so compassionate. What does that do for you as biological parents to them, to kind of see the people they're forming into through the experience?
I definitely think that God gave us those kids for, for this experience, because they have strengths and weaknesses, like it's not perfect. Oh, they have days.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. But they just really, I don't know that it's anything that we did, that made them who they are. I think we just got the kids that we needed for the journey of, that life is going to have for us. So.
Sorry, were you going to say something? You look like you had something to say.
I think she covered it.
And what are the ages you've had foster children? What's the range?
Pretty much the youngest obviously has been 3 days old, straight from the hospital, and then the oldest we had just for a couple of weeks was like 17 or 18.
16. She was 16, almost 17.
Okay, 16, almost 17. So, but that was only one for the majority. It's been between 0 and 8.
So what have been some of the struggles that you've had?
Obviously giving them up. You get, especially with, some of the younger kids, you get them, you have them for a year and a half. It's hard, especially hard, on the kids as well, having to give them up. But, other than that, like she said, it's really more of just going through the stages. A lot of times when you get a foster child in, oddly enough, it seems like for the first few weeks, they're all perfect children. They are afraid. I don't know if it's a fear, which is kind of sad in itself, but they want to do everything right. And so there's no disobedience. There's no, pushing boundaries. But then usually we now take comfort in when they do kind of start acting up, because it kind of means that they've gotten to a comfort level that they trust us, or know that they're not, that they're in a safe place, that they're not going to have to fear if they mess up. So, I guess, I don't know, that's really a challenge, but it's a weird situation of to see that emotion go through.
We had one little girl who, we only had her for a few months. She was one of our shorter placements because she ended up moving from us to a relative. So that was a good thing for her. But after probably it was like 2 months or something like that, she told me that she was real quiet, and our family, especially because of the youngest, tends to be loud, on the louder side, and busy, and there's always something going on and everything. And she was an only child, and a real quiet child too. And so she struggled a little bit, just kind of fitting in the groove of, the family and everything. And I remember she told me a couple months in, she said, do you remember when I first came here? And I said, yeah. And she said, when I first came here, it looked like a castle, and it was so bright, and it was so loud, and it was like a big giant castle. And she was like, no, it's just a regular house. Like, it just looks like a regular house. And I thought, like, it took her that long to feel like I'm comfortable, it's not scary and intimidating, and so that's what we want, even though it means hard behaviors and things. We want them to get where it just feels normal, it feels like regular life.
Because you don't know the backgrounds they've dealt with and what they've gone through in the time that they have been alive in their family situation. So what is it kind of, is it kind of scary to think, I don't know what this kid has gone through before you bring him into your house, or is it just...
Definitely. That's the easy.
I definitely think that is a worry. I think with us, since we've had mostly younger kids, it's a little... not that they couldn't still have gone through things that are, unimaginable, but at least it's somewhat, downplayed a little bit because we're getting pretty young kids. But yeah, it's definitely a concern of what they've experienced, what they've seen. We have definitely had experiences where things will be said or something will come out that you can immediately tell that child has witnessed or been a part of something that, not for their age. So not age appropriate for them.
And having to react to these situations that your kids may not have shown, and just as they didn't have that life, how has that changed you guys in your perspective or parenting, or just the way that you see your outlook on life or anything?
I think we try to not react to any of those things and to just really talk about it as much as we can, and whether that is to help our kids to learn that police are safe, or whether that is to, or that, like families are safe, or that you can say when you're mad, you can say when you're afraid, you can say, you can talk about it and it's okay. So I think we just spend time talking. And the big kids, our biological kids, they really do help out with that a lot, because kids, our younger kids who come in as fosters, they might feel safer talking to them than us. But we try to make sure that everybody knows that they can talk about whatever it is, and that's how we make it through that. I mean, there's uncomfortable conversations, and so we just try to like push past our uncomfortability so that they feel like they can say what they need to say.
So tell me first, kind of your biological kids and their ages and how old they were when you started the process.
So Eva is just turned, Eva will turn 12 next month, and Ethan just turned 10. So when we started, they were 6 and 4 with the process. So because actually our first placement right off the bat was 2 kids who were very close in age. So we actually, when our son turned 5, we had 3 5-year-olds at one time in the house, and so that was a challenge right off the bat. But
we had. They were very close in age. So our kids at that time, with our first placement, were they quickly turned 4, 5, 5, and 6, and so it actually ended up being like. I mean, I still look back on those days and I'm amazed at how. You're probably not gonna believe me, but it was just really easy. It was just because they just got along and they played. It was like sleepover every night. Yeah, they really got along well, and so it was, that was a blessing. But it was just like, it was hard because we have 4 and we had 2 before, and so we doubled, and they were, all requiring about the same thing, but at the same time, they were requiring the same thing, and so we weren't stretched between, we're trying, like right now we're trying to do like parent big kids plus parent, babies, and so, and comes with challenges too, but anyway.
So tell me the story of your youngest.
Can I stop for just 1 second?
Yeah.
Sorry. I just got to tell this contractor he can install my window.
No worries at all.
Later on, takes time.
Use your bathroom.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't, think there's poopy diaper in there. I hope not. I think I threw it away.
And how old's the youngest?
She's 2.5.
2.5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, it's Jason.
And Eva is EVA, and then Ethan's normal spelled, or?
Ethan is normal spelled. Eva is actually YVA. My mom's name is Yvonne, and so she's named after my mom, Yvonne. So.
That makes sense. That's different though. Usually you're Eva or
Yeah.
Yvonne. One of my cousins is Ivana.
Oh, Ivana. I think I've heard that. Does she spell it with a Y?
Mm-hmm. It's YVONNA.
Okay.
My aunt's, and she was also adopted, surprisingly. She, but I'm pretty sure my aunt named her because she had her first.
Okay.
And her middle name is Yvonne. My aunt's, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how she was named. But
Well, that's
she's had her
interesting.
for birth as well. And that's the name
I just didn't want him to leave and
No, I
not
understand.
install the
You
window.
gotta get work done. Totally
We've
fine.
had such a hard time with Eva's name, so we've second guessed it 1,000 times just because it is kind of like, it's different, and Jason's mom says she's never going to have a Disney cup with her name on it.
Yeah, my mom's name was
But,
Denise, but it was not spelled the typical D and ISE, and so she was like, "Oh, I never could find anything with my name on it." I'm like, "It'll
But
be all
Eva
right."
has lived, and she's
Yeah, totally fine.
she's totally survived perfectly well. So
But just going back, tell me the story of your youngest and that journey. I know there's probably some things you can't disclose, but just whatever you can tell me from the beginning to now.
we got the call for a newborn. And at the time, we had our 2 biological kids and a 4-year-old foster. child. And so we, like we normally do, we weren't necessarily thinking that we would ever get a call for a newborn necessarily. We just hadn't heard of that a whole lot. It seems like it's common now, but anyway, we weren't necessarily prepared for that. But just that we had the spot, available, and so we said yes. We asked the kids. We had just had a baby, an older baby who came and was with us for 5 or 6 months, and she had just left, and we all had a hard time with her going back home. She was able to go back home, and it was a great thing. We felt safe about the situation and everything, but we all had a hard time after her leaving, and I wondered how our foster son would do with being along on this journey, because he was with us for such a long time. He saw kids come and go, and we wondered how he would do with that. And so I was really kind of giving them more deciding factor than we normally do when we got the call for Anna. And so I told the kids about the situation with the baby, and she needed a family to take care of her because her family wasn't able to care for her right now. And so, and our little foster son, I'm talking to them in the car because we have only a short window of time to, to decide. Yes. And so he's in the middle of the back seat, and he's like, she can go live with us. She could just live with us. And so I'm like, okay, he's on board. And the bigger kids were excited about having a baby too. And so the kids' excitement carried over to us a little bit, and we got excited about her coming. So we said yes to newborn baby girl, and she proved to be she was a challenging baby. She had many hours of crying. Most of her waking hours were crying. And the biggest, our oldest, Eva, would come home from school, strap on the baby carrier, and go walk outside, because that would be where she was happiest. And she would just kind of do laps around the house and just keep her moving and keep her outside, and give me some time to make dinner because baby had been crying all day. So it was definitely a family effort of, having Anna in that stage of her life. Car rides were long and hard and stressful, and so it was a hard adjustment period for all of us, not only just newborn schedules, but for this newborn, she was hard to attach to, and we did regular visits with her biological family, and I got to know her biological family pretty well, and her biological mom ended up speaking with me and Jason personally, and asking us if we would adopt if Anna was not able to come back home with her. And so I was not, I'm just staring blankly at her and I didn't want to say, one way or the other, but that was, adoption was not our intention with Anna.
Or with anyone, really. I mean,
with
going
anyone,
into it,
yes.
we had kind of decided we were going to foster, and we wanted to make an effort to get to know the families, get to know the biological families, work with them, or try to assist them in, getting their life turned around and getting their kids back. And so it wasn't just her specifically, it was just any child. We had not really went into it with that goal in mind. So honestly, we had not even thought about it, because we had been working this whole time with her, or with her biological mom, to try to get that process going.
With a different goal in mind, And so when it came to that point where Jason and I had to decide, were we going to help her transition to a different adoptive home, or were we going to choose to adopt, God made it very clear that we were to be her adoptive home. And we worried about how she would, she's an amazing child, very smart, and, very in tune with everything that's going on, very observant, and but also big emotions, hard to attach to. And so we wondered how she would tolerate the change if she were to be in a completely different environment all over again, and so we just decided to adopt and talked to the big kids about it. That was something they were excited about, and which is like miraculous pretty much, because their whole life got turned upside down when she came on the scene, and really had not been uprighted at all.
Yeah, but it was the first time they got to have a child come in that they didn't have to then say goodbye to. And then for the most part, we've, out of the kids we've had, we've been able to keep in touch with about probably half, maybe a little better than half. And then the other, half we're not able to have contact, not by our own choice. But so I think it was the first time they got to actually have a child that they didn't have to say goodbye to. So they were, like you said, excited about that.
But it's interesting because they have a heart for foster care, because they, especially my daughter, worries about Anna's biological mom, and she worried about how that, all of her emotions. She was very aware that this was going to be a heartbreaking situation, for both Anna and for her biological family, and so it was so hard for us because we were all, it was a celebration, and it was a really joyful time, but it was hard because there's a bittersweet part of that when you live and breathe foster care and you want, for them to be able to return to their biological family. But, I know that she's where she needs to be, but there's also that bittersweet part of it that is, comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Well, and like she said, to know that our kids want to keep fostering, that was honestly the only, when we asked them about doing the adoption, their only question was, are we going to be able to keep fostering? That was their only drawback, or yes, we want to adopt, but does that mean we have to stop fostering? They were worried that they didn't want that to have to stop. So
But you guys are continuing, you still foster?
yeah, we've still,
We do.
So since when was her adoption finalized?
in April. It was April.
It hadn't been a year yet.
No, not quite a year.
I know it was going from, you have younger kids, but not a newborn
April
on the
19th.
newborn schedule. What was, obviously that you said that adjustment was kind of hard. Just elaborate a little more on that switch from getting no sleep. You have teenagers and younger, but now you have a whole newborn to take care of.
Honestly, she was difficult. She was a challenge during the day, but that was one thing that I think she actually slept well. Maybe because she was so all the time,
Tired
go
from
during
She
the
had to
day.
be tired.
That she slept well. She started sleeping through the night probably at 8 weeks old. So yes, it was. We had. Obviously, when we got Anna, our youngest at the time was about 7 or 8, and so yeah, we had not had newborn. We had one foster that was a baby, and so we had not too long ago went through that experience again. But yeah, it was definitely a switch to get back on. We try to stay on a very good schedule. We've noticed that our kids tend to do better, especially younger kids, if they're on a certain schedule. If they have the same bedtime, the same nap time, pretty much consistent time that we eat. And so that was probably the biggest change. Our other kids had gotten old enough that where we were kind of a little bit more lenient on bedtimes, or if we, wouldn't have to, we obviously didn't have nap times anymore. So that kind of changed our weekend plans of needing to be back home between the hours of 1 and 3 for naps every day again and things like that.
Yeah, and we had kind of planned that she, we had big kids and had, they have things at birthday parties and they have sports and things like that, and things that we want to participate in as a family. so we had kind of planned for her to be kind of an on-the-go baby, and that is not what she was. So, like we just kind of had to come to a happy medium where we had to kind of give up some things, and she had to, adjust. Yes. And so we, we made it through, and it wasn't, there's plenty of, it was difficult, to do that newborn schedules. And she had a lot of sensory issues. And so once we learned things about that, and we learned what helped her, blackout curtains and noise machine and some movement things that would help her settle down. There was a lot of learning on our part. She had adjusting to do too, but once we adjusted to her, to her satisfaction, things got better, for sure.
So what's it like now obviously you have more than 3 kids in the house all the time, and now you have 3 full-time kids. How's it now that you've had her for practically 3 years now?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like? Has anything changed since her adoption is finalized, or it's just kind of business as normal? And
I think
now
as
she's
far,
officially yours.
yeah, there's, we now don't have scheduled visitations and case manager visitations and certain appointments that we have to make and court dates. So that load has been lifted a little bit, but and then obviously she's gotten a little bit older, and so she's constant entertainment. I think the kids are constantly laughing at her, and they enjoy playing with her. So as she has gotten older, her personality's starting to come out more and more, and so
yeah, and it's been kind of this past year for us. We kind of saw her, she's getting out of being a baby anymore and being aware of what's going on, who's around, and she got, really for the first chance in her life to be aware of, being a foster sister. When we had, a foster child for the past of last month, we had a foster child for 10 months of last year, and she, was aware of her coming, and she was aware of her, she was along for family visitations and all that stuff. She was a part of all that, and then of her, being able to be reunified with her biological family. So that was a change, because it was, I guess maybe she felt more on the other side. Yeah, on the other side.
So what do you think the most rewarding thing of being a foster parent has brought to you?
Part of it for sure is definitely seeing our biological kids and our adopted child give and sacrifice and be compassionate, and also have an understanding of the world and the challenges people face, and to not judge people necessarily just on face value, but know that there's people and there's difficulties and things that people have. I guess understanding and compassion, of them is one of the biggest things. And for sure, I know for me, but I think I can speak for both of us that has grown in us too. Like foster care has probably taught us a lot about just looking beyond face value and seeing that there are challenges that many people face. A lot of probably more than half of our kids' biological moms have been in the foster care system. And so when we started seeing that pattern, then it really opened our eyes to this, they have seen challenges in their life that that we can't understand, and it helps us to show more compassion and to try to understand them, but to know that, they're for the most part really good people, and they're, have made a mistake or a series of mistakes or whatever has led them to this path, but they're they love their kids, you know, and so like that's total common ground for us, you know,
Right.
as far as that goes. But
And I think even there are situations where a lot of people wouldn't understand this, but sometimes they recognize that they need to give their kids up because they love their kids. And I mean, that's a hard thing. And I mean, you talk to most common people and they were like, I would never give up my kid, or I could never do that. But I mean, it's hard to know that person's situation and know where they're coming from. And now us being on this side of it, I've seen some situations where I've had to see a mother make that choice a couple of times. And honestly, I do, knowing the situations and knowing where those kids have ended up, I do think it was best. And, you know, it was a hard decision, but they did make it for the best of their child. And, you know, they're not going to be understood by other people. But, you know, if you, like she said, I think we have now, I know for myself, see the people that we are getting foster kids from, the biological parents. I mean, you get to see them as people. I mean, a lot of times you don't before. I don't think, you know, everybody does. And so you just think that they made a mistake or they're not good people, because how could they do that to a child? And a lot of times it's not. It's just like she said, it's just a mistake. It's normal people who just had mistakes or either had circumstances beyond their control and things have just kind of gotten out of hand. And so,
Just more understanding of people. And
yeah.
yeah, I could see that. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you want to add in about your experience, or we've talked about almost everything.
yeah, yeah, we talked about kids coming in and going.
Go and
Yeah.
I don't know, we covered most of it. What would you say to someone that maybe would be considering becoming a foster parent?
I mean, I think the first step is honestly just to go ahead and do it. I mean, it's hard to make that initial.
You're never going to be ready.
Right.
You're never going to be ready or like have everything. It's like, it's like deciding to have a biological child. I mean, you're not going to really be ready. You're going to just decide, just say the yes. And if it's on your heart, and if, going into it, that you've got love, to give in your family. And it's totally been, like, our extended family are not here locally, but, are kind of spread out across the state of Florida and beyond. But they have become family to our kids. Like, they...
Immediately.
Yeah. And so when you have people, in your family and extended family that are willing to open their hearts and minds to, another broken little person, just like we all are, that's, it's probably worthwhile to just get some extra information, and it may be different than what everybody can do, but I know Jason and I have had people who have felt like, their heart goes out to foster care and they wish they could do it, but they, or whatever reason, they can't. And they have supported us, in whatever ways of, like, helping to watch the kids, or bringing over supplies, when we have a placement or whatever is the case. So I would say, like, if you have thought in your mind, it'd be worthwhile to just get more information, and then you can decide from there how you can help. And for the most part, from our experience, I know everybody's is different, but from our experience, it's easier than what we thought.
Yeah, and there's a lot of areas that, I mean, first of all, the need is a lot. I mean, and I didn't know this, and I don't know if Erin did either, how great the need was until we got into it and started seeing how many families are needed and how many kids basically are having to be sent out of county and things like that, just because of the need for foster families.
I think I heard, like, a radio segment or something on the news or whatever, about the need for foster care before we decided to go ahead and look into it. I made a phone call to who knows who. I have no idea even now who it was, but I made a phone call, and then I made another, and then get a call back, and then I made another phone call, and I'm like, well, I guess I really don't need help. because nobody ever called me back. But now on this side of things, like 6-7 years later, I can tell you they never call me back because they don't have time to breathe. Or, like eat lunch. They just are too busy. And so, the need is there for
and
sure.
what I was going to say is also, I mean, there's areas you can help in. I mean, a lot of people, until you get into it, you don't realize, I mean, there's, respite care, there's short-term, care, there's, I mean, you are able to set what age group, so if you're thinking, well, I can't handle getting a baby or I'm beyond those years, I mean, you have a say in being able to accept placements. And so there's definitely a need for all ages and all ranges. So, I mean, there's definitely a place that you could serve if you're, wanting to do that.